The years passed, and the child who had been drawn from the waters of the Nile grew into a remarkable man. Raised in Pharaoh's palace, Moses became a prince respected throughout Egypt for his wisdom, courage, and noble character. No one could have imagined the extraordinary purpose God had prepared for his life. As a prince of Egypt, Moses received the finest education the kingdom could offer. He learned the wisdom of scholars, studied the laws of the land, and explored the mysteries of the stars. Every lesson shaped him into a man ready to lead. Education was only the beginning. Every prince of Egypt was expected to become a fearless warrior, and Moses devoted himself to mastering every skill placed before him. Day after day, he trained with discipline and determination. Among the many skills he learned, Moses became an exceptional archer. His training continued with the sword, the spear, and the shield. Every challenge strengthened both his body and his character, preparing him for responsibilities he did not yet understand. He learned to command Egypt's finest war chariots, where speed, balance, and quick decisions meant the difference between victory and defeat. Before long, even the royal commanders admired his skill. As Moses grew in wisdom, he was invited to observe the royal court. There, he watched kings, advisors, and generals make decisions that shaped an entire nation. Though he lived as a prince, Moses never looked down on those around him. His kindness and humility earned the respect of soldiers, servants, and the people who crossed his path each day. Egypt stood among the greatest kingdoms the world had ever known. Mighty temples, thriving markets, and powerful armies reflected its wealth and strength. Moses had everything a prince could ever desire. Yet despite the honor surrounding him, Moses could not ignore the questions growing within his heart. Beyond the palace walls lived the Hebrew people, his own people. Something drew him toward them. The next morning, Moses left the palace to see how his people lived. He believed he was simply making a visit. He had no idea this journey would change the course of his life forever. The further Moses traveled, the quieter the world became. The laughter of the palace faded behind him, replaced by dust, heat, and the sound of endless labor. Before him stood a side of Egypt he had never truly known. As Moses entered the camp, he saw men shaping bricks from clay and straw under the relentless sun. Every face carried the weight of exhaustion, yet the work never seemed to end. Everywhere he looked, Moses saw weary faces marked by years of hardship. Elderly men struggled beside young workers, while families labored together beneath the burning sky. Their silent suffering spoke louder than words. With every step, Moses discovered another story of pain. The cries of the workers, the weight of the bricks, and the endless labor began to weigh heavily on his own heart. Just as Moses prepared to leave, a desperate cry rose above the sounds of the camp. He stopped in his tracks. Something ahead demanded his attention. A crowd had gathered ahead. Worker after worker stepped aside as Moses made his way forward, uncertain of what he was about to witness. At the center of the crowd, Moses saw an Egyptian overseer treating a Hebrew worker with harsh cruelty. The cries of the helpless man echoed through the camp, and Moses could no longer remain silent. The cries of his own people pierced Moses' heart. His sorrow slowly turned into anger as he watched the injustice unfold before his eyes. Moses took a slow step forward. In that moment, he knew he could not simply walk away. The overseer turned and looked directly at Moses. For a brief moment, neither man spoke. The entire camp seemed to hold its breath. In a single moment, everything changed. The Egyptian fell to the ground, and an uneasy silence swept across the camp. Moses stood frozen, realizing his life would never be the same again. Moses looked down in shock. In trying to defend the helpless, he had crossed a line that would change the course of his life forever. Fear quickly replaced Moses' anger. He looked around, hoping no one had witnessed what had happened. The camp had fallen silent, but his heart was racing. Believing he was alone, Moses made a desperate decision. He covered the evidence beneath the desert sand, hoping the past would remain buried forever. That night, the palace felt different. Surrounded by luxury, Moses found no peace. The memory of that day would not leave his mind. When morning came, Moses returned to the Hebrew settlement. He hoped to leave the previous day behind. Instead, another unexpected moment was waiting for him. Before long, Moses noticed two Hebrew men arguing fiercely with one another. Grieved to see his own people divided, he stepped forward to bring peace. Moses raised his voice, urging them to stop. "You are brothers," he pleaded. "Why would you harm one another?" One of the men looked at Moses with anger and replied, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of doing to me what you did yesterday?" The words struck Moses like a thunderbolt. His secret was no longer hidden. Someone had seen everything. It did not take long for the news to spread. The story traveled quickly through Egypt until it reached the ears of Pharaoh himself. When Pharaoh learned what Moses had done, his anger burned fiercely. The prince he had once trusted was now condemned, and an order went out across Egypt to capture him. Moses knew he could not stay another moment. Before the palace awoke, he quietly left behind the only home he had ever known. With every step, the distance between him and Egypt grew greater. For the first time in his life, Moses walked without royal guards, servants, or honor. The Prince of Egypt had become a man with nowhere to go. The fertile land of Egypt soon gave way to endless wilderness. There were no crowds, no voices, only the wind sweeping across the desert. Hour after hour, Moses pressed forward beneath the blazing sun. The journey grew harder with every mile, yet he refused to turn back. His water was nearly gone. Every step demanded more strength than the last, but Moses continued forward, trusting that somehow he would survive. As night fell, the desert became silent. Beneath a sky filled with countless stars, Moses rested alone, carrying nothing but his memories and an uncertain future. With the first light of dawn, Moses continued his journey. Then, far in the distance, he noticed something he had not seen for days. Signs of life. After days of wandering, Moses finally reached the land of Midian. Exhausted from the journey, he found a well and sat down to rest. Not long afterward, a group of young women arrived to draw water for their father's flock. The quiet well soon filled with the sounds of sheep, laughter, and everyday life. Before the women could water their flock, other shepherds arrived and forced them aside. Moses watched the scene unfold in silence, but only for a moment. Without hesitation, he stepped forward to protect the women and their flock. After the shepherds left, Moses remained by the well. Though weary from his own journey, he gladly drew water for the women's flock until every animal had been cared for. The daughters gathered their flock and returned home much earlier than usual. Their father immediately noticed something was different. Seeing them arrive so early, Reuel looked at his daughters with surprise. "How is it that you have returned so soon today?" he asked. One of the daughters answered, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." Reuel listened carefully, then asked, "Where is he?" Looking at his daughters with kindness, he said, "Invite him to our home." The daughters returned to the well and found Moses still resting. They thanked him for his kindness and invited him to share a meal with their family. Reuel welcomed Moses with open arms and offered him food and rest. After days of fear and uncertainty, Moses had finally found peace. The prince who had fled Egypt found refuge in a distant land. Moses believed his journey had come to an end, but God was only beginning his work.